Tractate Bava Batra. We are beginning now at chapter 8, the beautiful chapter that dealing with the law of Yerushot, law of inheritance. It's called Yesh Nochalim, the law of inheritance. Obviously there is a lot of complications because not in every case the way that we approach things happen. For example, husband, wife, wife, husband. It's not always the same way when it's come to children, stepchildren from the father, from the mother, brothers, sisters, inheritance, and more. All of that is the key subject of our perek. In general, the paternal, meaning mishpachat av, they go by the father, it's called mishpacha. Mother, it's go different. We go by the Kidmut benachala, who is the closest one in the kinsman. It's all based on the two different Torah portions. One, it's in Bamidbar 27, the story of the 5 daughters of Tzlofchad, and when they came before Moshe Rabbeinu and he brought it before God, the decision what type of inheritance they're going to have in the land, as well as later in Bamidbar, in book of Numbers, chapter 36, also a discussion in regards to inheritance. In modern days we have endless questions. Just as an example, right after World War II was a lot of people that left properties and it wasn't clear who is going to inherit it and how to treat it, since there's no closing cane, and how far you go with the relationship to the deceased. So here we are on page 108, the Mishnah. Yesh nochalin u'manchilin, v'yesh nochalin ve'lo manchilin. The Torah said that the one who's closest in kin to the deceased is the one that take precedence when it's come to have the inheritance. So it means if a person have a relative, he is basically, if there's nobody in between. We all know the story of Ruth and Boaz. So if you read in my book Ruth Talk, question and answers on the book of Ruth, you see a discussion between Boaz and Ruth in regards to a closest kin when it's come to redeem a property of the deceased, a man, because it was closest relative before him. That's basically the framework, because here the Mishnah said there are family members who both inherited from. Soon you see examples, but in very simple basic way is son, father. Yet we said they are also bequeathed to each other when each of them respectfully die. V'yesh nochalin ve'lo manchilin. There are those who in one hand inherit to certain relatives, and later on obviously we're going to have examples, but they're not bequeathed their estate to others. The Rashbam said there are v'yesh nochalin ve'lo manchilin ve'lo nochalin ve'lo manchilin. There are those who are basically can bequeath to a certain relative, but they're not inherited, and vice versa. So here we have examples. We first start in the general examples. Later on the Gemara goes to the details. Ve'elu nochalim umanchilim. These both inherit and bequeath. Ha'av et habanim. Father regards to his sons. So it means if, God forbid, it will never happen to anyone, but if I'm 21 years in my life rabbi of community, so in the 2 community I served, it was several cases of father buried the son, which is no word to describe the pain, but part of that is the idea that he basically inherited them and vice versa. But later on you see a condition. This applies only if unfortunately his sons have no children. If they do have children, so therefore they take precedent before his father. V'habanim et ha'af, the sons to the daughter. Later the Gemara dealt with the kfilut, why you need to say it twice. Nochalim umanchilim. Obviously we go both ways, which is inheritance and bequeath. Second category, ha'ish et imo, a person inherited his mother, ve'a'ish et ishto, and a person inherited his wife, ubnei achayot, which is in a simple way the sons of the sister, which is nephew born to the sisters of the deceased, nochalim umanchilim. So here you see basically three categories, which is mother, wife, and in a way but there is a lot of question, the derivative from that. To give an example that the Mefarshim dealt, if you have a convert that married Jewish, how you treated the mishpachat ha'em, how you treated the inheritance when it's come to the mother. Anyway, the third category, ha'isha et banea, va'isha et ba'ala, va'achei ha'em, manchilim velo nochalim. Here we talk about wife-husband, a woman with with regards to her husband, and the woman, the woman regard to her sons, which means the inheritance, va'isha et ba'ala, and woman with regards to her husband, va'achei ha'em, the maternal uncles. So they said manchilim, they all bequeath to their respective relative. However, velo manchilim, they do not inherit from them. Now go to the fourth category, v'ha'achin min ha'em, maternal brothers, not from the father, which is even they are a blood relative, lo nochalim velo manchilim, do not inherit from each other and do not bequeath to one another, because they're not considered by halakha relatives for the purpose of inheritance. So the Gemara asks a question, why the first statement has to be father toward his son? It should be the other way around, sons toward the father. So they said there are several examples, several explanations. Number one, in general, when it's come to sadness, to calamity, we don't start with this. So unfortunately, as we said earlier, death of sons, he said in Yiddish, nicht verkaufen gedacht. It never happened to anyone. During the father's lifetime is absolutely calamity. So it will have been appropriate to begin the example of son inheriting the father. That's what Hashem, the Almighty, promised Yaakov Avinu, Bereshit 46. He says, Yosef yashit yado alenecha. The Rashbam explained that that's the blessing. When the son need to bury the father, and God forbid not the other way around. Here we are, page 108b, another explanation, ve'od, ki dichtiv ish ki yamut uben en lo. This is the book of Bamidbar, chapter 27. They said if a person die and he has no sons, so therefore he goes by his daughter. So the same way that the portion dealing with inheritance started with the statement of inherited of the son, the same way the Tana and the Mishnah should start this way. So the Gemara responded and said, Tana aide de atya midrash chaviv alei. It's kind of more a feeling or likened to, or dear to him, something that he likes to so he listed first. So my drasha, what exactly the derivation, the Tanya. So at the very end of the portion of dealing with inheritance in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 27, they said, "Unetatem et nachalato." You should give the inheritance lish'ero akarov elav, to the kings and the one closest in kin to that person. So they said, "She'ero," who is the one who involved with she'er, with the kingsman. So they said, "The ha'av," that applied to what? To a father. The Torah said, "She'er avichahu." So that's basically the father. Melamed she'a'av kodem la'achim. So when it's come to hierarchy, when it's come to level of gradation, when it's a law of inheritance, the fathers take precedent before the brothers, which is if he passed away without having children, the father inherited him but not the brothers. That's the Rashbam explain as well as Tosfot Yeshanim. But so since the father take precedence before the brothers, Yachol Yehe Kodem Laben, so since the sentences doesn't look like written in a chronological or certain orders, we may think that the father even take precedence before the child of the deceased, as Rabbeinu Gershom. So they said no. Rabbeinu Yonah and Tosfot and others explain no. Talmud Lomar, we derive from the strict understanding of the text and a tradition that we have, HaKarov, Karov, Karov, Kodem. When it's come to next to him, that closer one to the deceased, which is the early one, is in order of inheritance, and the son of the deceased is considered to be closer relative to the deceased than the father of the deceased. So therefore, he, meaning the grandson or the son of the deceased, take precedent before the father. Why do you see to include sons as the closest relative than the father, and to exclude the brother? So they said, there are two important things that in the biblical terms the son take precedence, which is, in those days they used to buy a Hebrew maid servant, so there's special money that designated for that. So the son take precedence, meaning if he wants to betroth her, he doesn't need to allocate a separate money for the purpose of betrothing her, but he can use kesef miknata, the money that was to purchase her, in order that he gave to her father, in order to marry her, and he can designate that money for his son. The second one is for the purpose of ancestors' field, which means if someone consecrated an ancestry field and the treasurer sell it to his son, so it returned to him in the Jubilee year. But if he sell it, this ancestry field, to the brother, so, and for sure if he sell it to anybody else, so it's divided among the Kohanim. In general, the ancestral field, right after Yoshua bin Nun, Joshua took over the leadership after Moses, so it was a rule that if someone it was the estate that divided by the lottery and divided to each tribe, and it was 8.5 tribes in the regular part of Israel, 1 tribe of Levite not inherited, and 2.5 tribes in the eastern part of Jordan gets that portion. But basically, if someone have his estate, ancestral field, and he consecrated it, so he can redeem it until the Jubilee year, and therefore it returned to his estate, his domain, as it was originally. But if he sold that estate to the brother of the one who consecrated it, so then it's divided among the priests at the time of the Jubilee year. So the Gemara said, Adraba, on the contrary, I should include the brother because he is the closest relative. Why? Because when it's come to a Levirate marriage, as we learn in the book of Ruth, now we study for Shavuot, and you see it in several places in the Torah. So you see that if a person died childless, so he basically have the obligation of Levirate marriage, which means that his brother has the responsibility to miyabem, to Levirate, to the wife of his deceased brother. However, a son obviously cannot do yibum for the mother. So they said, Klum yesh yibum ela b'mkom she'en ben, aval b'makom she'en ben, en yibum. So come on, the whole concept of Levirate marriage is if the person died childless, but if he have a son, then it's no longer apply. So the Maharsha comments on that, the next page, in page 109, The Gemara is going to deal with that more. But anyway, Tamadi Kahai Pircha, the reason that a son is considered to be a closest relative than the brother is specifically because the Ikahai Pircha, we have this refutation that there is a son, so there is no levirate marriage. But he said, Halav Hachi, without this refutation, Hava Amina Ach Adif, I may say that the brother is superior to a son in terms of how close relative he is. So the Gemara said, Teipu Klei, we should learn that the son is take precedence before the brother. Page 109, the Hacha Tartei veHacha Chada. That when it's come to the son, there are two things that is after his father, as we explained earlier. Yehud with Amai Vriya, when it's come to designation with the Hebrew maidservant, she can use that money for that purpose. And second is, as we said, Sdei Achuzah, which is the ancestry field. Ve'achachada versus when it's come to the brother, there is only one thing, which is the mitzvah of levirate marriage, that he basically standing there next in line. So why the Tana needs to bring this proof from the law of levirate marriages? He can respond and say that the son is the closest kin more than the brother because he is under his father for these two things, which is the Yehuda Ma'ir Vriya, designation of Hebrew maidservant, and for the ancestry free field, which is this the Achuzah, versus the brother is only for one thing, which is the Yibum. So the Gemara said, Sdei Achuzah Gufa Mehai Tama Udekakaim Eletana. When it's come to ancestry field, the Tana establishes his ruling from the same reason, which is Klum Yesh Yibum Ela Bimkom She'en Ben, Ha Yesh Ben and Yibum. Obviously, it all applies the levirate marriage when there is no son, and once there is son, is no longer applicable. So you see that the whole idea of determination that the redemption of the ancestral field by a son is in place of the redemption of the field by the father. So the redemption of the field by a brother is not. It's based on the reasoning that the halacha of levirate marriage is not an indication that the brother is the closest relative than a son. So here you see the whole concept of the ancestry field. It cannot be as a second example of the son's superiority, as it's a term from the first example that of the levirate marriage. Now, in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow, we're going to continue the whole hierarchy, Sidrei Yerusha, how it goes. We're going to learn also the names of Putiel, the father-in-law of the Moshe Rabbeinu and his father-in-law, and we also are going to zoom in the whole idea of husband inherited wife versus wife does not inherited husband by the Torah law. Again, as we said, that's something we're looking forward for the next shiur.